The ancient words I'm about to read to you are the perfect, what we heard from the Work and Witness team is the examples. Would you please stand as I read from the book of Matthew? I'm reading in two places today. The first one is from chapter 22, verses 36 through 40. The second one will be at the end, chapter 28, verses 19 and 20. The Greatest Commandment. Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. The Great Commission. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age.
Well, if you're like me, you're watching the clock. Be assured I recognize the clock. We were going to talk, and we will not today, but another time, about the church and what it is that God calls us to be as a church, and the difference between an institution and a mission. And I believe, and I think that it's been represented by our Work and Witness report, that we are a church that truly believes in mission. The difference is what we do here versus what we do out there. And my heart, and I hope you understand, my heart and our heart is our ultimate goal is what goes on out there. We are the church here, but we are the church out there. And that's where we really make an impact for eternity. So what I'm going to do, because some people have already asked, wait for the brick. What does that mean? I just want to share the story, and then we'll wrap things up today. There was a young executive who was very successful, and he was tooling down the street in his brand new Jaguar. He was going a little faster than he should, but he was trying to be conscious of the children because he saw lots of kids along the edge of the road. And as he was driving down a certain stretch of the road, he noticed something off to the side, and a brick came flying out between two cars and hit his brand new Jaguar in the door. Well, he immediately hit the brakes and screeched to a halt, and he turned around, and he came, and there was a young boy coming out between the cars, and he jumped out of the car, and he grabbed him, and he pushed him up against the car that was there, and he said, "What in the world are you doing? This is a brand new car. I can't believe you threw a brick." And you can just imagine the tirade that went on, and the whole time, and the boy is standing there, and then he sees the tears running down the little boy's face, and when the guy stops finally, the boy says, "Please, mister, I didn't know what else to do." And he goes, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, I was pushing my brother in his wheelchair, and he fell out, hit the curb, edge of the curb, and it tipped over, and he fell down, and I can't get him up. And I tried to get people to stop, but no one would stop, so I threw a brick, hoping that would get someone's attention." Well, the man shut up immediately and ran over and helped get the young boy back into the wheelchair, and then he took his handkerchief out and he cleaned his face and he checked his wounds to make sure that he didn't need to go to the hospital or anything, and he got him set back up on the curve, and the young boy turned to him and said, "Thank you, mister. God bless you." And he wheeled him down the sidewalk toward his home. Well, the young man turned, and it was a very long, slow walk back to his Jaguar. And he said, "Dear God, what have I done?" And he never repaired the dent in the door of his Jaguar to remind himself to never be going so fast through life, never to be so distracted with all the stuff that it took a brick to get his attention. So here's the question. What does God have to do to get a hold of you? What does God have to do to get your attention? I tease John Merrick. He and I are both alike in some ways. Sometimes God has to use a 2x4 to get our attention. Not me, just John. But I imagine many of you could raise your hand that way. So the question is, are you going to listen to what God says? Are you going to spend the time in His Word? Are you going to spend the time praying? Are you going to spend the time in worship? So that when God speaks, that you will hear Him, and it doesn't take a brick to get your attention. God bless you today. Thanks for being a part of the service. Thanks, Work and Witness team. And again, I say, we get to go and be on site, but we couldn't do it without you, without your prayers. I tell you, one of the highlights for me is the prayer sheets that you give. It's amazing how the words that you write on those prayers give us what we need on that particular day. So thank you, as well as your resources that make it possible. God bless you. Please stand.